I'm delighted to welcome to the show this afternoon Sarah Jane Johnston of Evolution 34. Welcome, Sarah Jane.
Hi Elaine, how are you?
Fantastic, thank you, as
Good.
always.
Yeah.
One of the strands of Evolution 34 that I'd like to talk to you about first of all is Pilates. And
hmm
you were actually doing a class in the church hall next to the radio studio, weren't you, for a while? And you've kindly sponsored the show, so thank you very much for that.
No, my pleasure. Yeah, so teaching Pilates, I teach 15 hours a week now. Started off last September, doing 9, and it's just grown. Especially having taken my business online as well recently with the COVID-19, having to act very quickly on that. So I'm a clown, well, clown-based person now, but from the East Midlands, so from Nottingham, actually, I think, which is your neck of the woods, and found myself in North East Derbyshire. And looking for some great locations to teach Pilates, and yes, indeed, found the church hall next to Elastic FM. So, and it was a great opportunity because I've heard of Elastic FM, but it's that you have to see something or recognise something 3 times before it thinks, hold on a minute, this isn't going away, and I keep seeing it. And I approached the show to see if I could be a sponsor, so I'm delighted to.
Absolutely wonderful, and by coincidence, although actually there's no such thing as coincidence, is there? It's opportunity and timing that pull together, and people go, "Oh, that's a coincidence." Um, we met, didn't we, so a while ago at a ladies' networking event, and then
Yes.
lo and behold, when you turned up in the studio, I remember saying, "Oh, it's you." I
It
didn't realise it was you. So, because you came on the show, didn't you, a few months, well, probably a couple of months ago now, and
yeah.
we had quite a busy time, didn't we? Which was good fun. So, Pilates. What actually is Pilates, Sarah Jane?
So Pilates is all about finding your perfect neutral spine. So it's about helping people to first of all find their neutral spine. So what do we mean by that? So making sure that people understand it's standing tall, it's shoulders back and down. It's about tilting your pelvis. So we can find that neutral spine. And when we're doing the exercises as well, it's lateral thoracic breathing because we've got our transverse abdominals engaged, which is a bit sciencey. But what we're doing in Pilates is we're toning the inner muscles. So forget about the rectus abdominals. We all know what they are. It's about toning those internal muscles, so the transverse abdominals, so we can strengthen the core around our spine. And we focus a lot on the pelvic floor as well. So we're trying to build up, trying to lengthen short, tightened muscles and also work on our major joints as well. So, for example, I would do a glute strengthener exercise for supporting the knee joint. Now, the glutes and the knee seem so far away from each other, but if we looked into the anatomy, we're strengthening the top of the leg muscle, so the leg joints, the leg bones. So a lot of people that have knee issues, I'll double the amount of glute strengtheners or glute exercises, for example. I learnt Pilates because I was doing a lot of boxing fitness classes and was told by my shadow boxer that I was flimsy.
Mhm.
So that was 17 years ago now. And it does. I mean, I call my business Evolution 34 because for me, Pilates was evolutionary. Alongside everything else I was doing fitness wise, it just made me feel so much better.
So you mentioned boxing, and
Mm.
have you always been a fitness freak?
Yeah, absolutely. I was into sport at school, mainly doing sport on my own. So I wasn't necessarily a team player. I was always worried about letting people down and not being the last one to be picked, but was never the overly confident person, although I was heavily into drama. But I found sprinting. I used to like country running as well. I'm not a long distance runner. And then I joined my first gym when I was 16, heavily got into aerobics, the leg warmers, the whole outfit. So that was kind of my late teens, early 20s. I think for me, exercise just, if people ask me how do I relax, I say exercise, and they say that's not a form of relaxation. But for me, because I have such a busy mind and I'm a busy person, exercise does relax me. So yeah, I've just really enjoyed exercising, but it's changed over the years, and it's had to for various reasons.
So when you say it's changed over the years, do you mean your personal regime has changed over the years?
Yes, and I think that's important for me, for people to realise that it can change. So grew up a gym bunny, loved, like I said, loved the leg warmers. It was a ladies only gym, you know, had the kit, had everything. And then I decided that I don't know whether I outgrew it. And then the actual kind of weights machines became quite important because I wanted to look physically fit as well as feel fit. This was sort of into my mid-20s, and had some really poor experiences of they're not personal trainers, they're just people that are watching the gym, really, aren't they? Unless you can afford a personal trainer, which wasn't something that I could do at the time. And then moved up to Scotland and joined a gym and thought, oh, hold on a minute, I don't want to do aerobics anymore. I don't want to be in the gym anymore. So turned to the more physical exercise classes, such as boxing, fitness. Didn't do I've never been a CrossFit person. I just can't box jump. So yeah, so it's changed. And then I found out I had high blood pressure. So cardio exercise became something that was important to me. So I started mixing a lot of my fitness with concentrating on cardio as well as strength. And then, as I say, my boxing fitness instructor said that I was flimsy. So then turned my attention to Pilates, which was so different when I started it. I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on? I didn't feel like I was achieving anything. But once I understood the 6 principles of Pilates, and with practice I was getting the precision and the control right, boy was I seeing some, you know, I'd never been so toned, never felt so long and lean and lifted, and I felt like a giraffe almost. It really sort of stretched me out, and it calmed me as well after a busy day in the office. It was more of a calming exercise than the boxing fitness. So over the years, my exercise has changed, and I think it's really important for people to go with whatever feels right at the time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because we've all got busy lives, as you mentioned. And I was interested what you said about high blood pressure. So even though you fit as a fiddle, you had high blood pressure. What's that all about?
I don't know, and neither did my GP. And at the time, I walked I'd had a knee ligament injury, and that's really what I was going in for. But because of my age and probably being on a contraceptive, they wanted to take my blood pressure and said it was high. So I don't know, I've always been told from the age of 18, you know, when you start to go to the doctors on your own and you no longer need your mum there with you or a parent or guardian, I was always told I had high blood pressure. But when asked why it was high, I don't know. I was busy. I didn't go to university. I went straight from college into work. I've always worked voluntary. I've got a husband who doesn't keep particularly well, so that was always on my mind. So I could always put it down to an excuse. And then it was only when I was 34 that the GP in Scotland said, this is ridiculously high. And I bought an on-run machine, obviously there's other ones available,
Yes.
and tested myself. And she said, no, I needed to go on to, I know these aren't your favourites, but some hypertension drugs which I've been on and have questions coming off. But my GP, this was just before Christmas, wasn't really willing to have that kind of conversation with me at that moment in time. So it's always something that's on the back of my mind. You know, have I changed my fitness? Did I up my cardio? Have I got better control of whatever functions, you know, whatever it causes it? But yeah, it was almost a question that was, I don't know, never really answered, but never really looked into.
Right. Years ago, I used to run cardiovascular health clinics, and
Mm-hmm.
part of the questionnaire when I took clients in for testing, I asked them about exercise, and very quickly I realised that the type of exercise that clients were doing made a huge difference on their overall health and well-being. And
Mm-hmm.
people who came in with high blood pressure, we'd fix them within 3 months, easy peasy, never failed on any one of them, all naturally with natural supplements. And some of them came in who were on statins, and they made the choice. I would never tell anybody to stop medication, obviously, and it has to be done in conjunction with your GP. But
Yeah.
for many of these people, they just said, "Oh, blow that for a game of soldiers." You know, I'm getting so many side effects from these statins and other drugs supposedly to help the blood pressure. I've had enough. I'm coming off. So we introduced the natural supplements. But with a lot of them, I actually suggested that they stop doing the exercise they were doing because they were doing the wrong type of exercise. And some of them, when they were just absolutely throwing themselves around the gym and going running, you know, really almost kind of bursting blood vessel level of exercise, which if you've got a cardiovascular problem, then to me it doesn't make sense that you would,
No.
you know, exacerbate the problem by you know, putting your heart under more pressure. So but with your Pilates, I mean, that's gentle, isn't it? Pilates, gentle exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been so lucky and realised a lot about my own fitness regimes, because Pilates isn't something you can do over a weekend. And I wouldn't want to belittle anybody that does, you know, a 3-day weekend course and they can teach, I don't know, all manner of sort of dancing, more fitness classes. But I chose Pilates because I like the science of the body and what it did for me and how it made me feel. So becoming a Pilates instructor was not an easy ride. I had to go straight into learning anatomy and physiology, which I absolutely detested at school. So I had to sit 2 exams. So I sat my level 2 anatomy and physiology, and then had to achieve my level 3 anatomy and physiology before you can't become a Pilates instructor without having those. So as I was learning, I was going sort of looking at myself and learning all about hypertension and thinking, actually I'm probably pushing my heart rate a little bit too high. So I changed it. So one minute I'm on a laptop preparing to sit an anatomy and physiology exam and learning about myself, which was strange because if I hadn't decided that I wanted to turn my passion of Pilates into my business, I would never have known. And so now I have a running machine, I've got a spin bike at home, and I've got a stepper. And I do various different days. I'll take my heart rate up and then I'll keep it a lot lower. So I'm not overexerting all the time, which is, prior to that, I thought I should be overexerting. And it wasn't at all. And it's so hard to get actual credible information. And I just find it can be a minefield, can't it? And so through becoming a Pilates instructor and having to sit anatomy and physiology exams, I realised how high I should be taking my heart rate and how I should be looking after it with exercise a little bit more. But yeah, absolutely, Pilates doesn't wake my Fitbit up. I have to record a Pilates session because it takes your heart rate up, and it is strenuous. And a lot of my clients now that I've been working with for 4 or 5 months go, I feel like I've really worked hard today. So, but it's more strenuous than taxing on your heart. So if that makes sense.
So how long, you mentioned when you first started Pilates, you didn't really notice a difference, and then when you kind of got into the science of it and started understanding, what difference it should make, that helps. So for a lay person, what sort of length of time should they give Pilates sessions to kind of make a difference?
I mean, I think for me, it was really the first 3 weeks. I was just like, in terms of results, I would say 12 to 18, 20 weeks. Because at first, there's so much that's going on. So first of all, you're on a mat, which was unusual for me because I was used to very much more energetic, standing, jumping around exercise. So once having got into our neutral spine and mobilised the joints, the muscles, so warming up basically, the majority of the exercises were on a mat, so it's mat Pilates. And then there's all this about bringing in your transverse abdominals, lateral thoracic breathing. And so it's the terminology, as well as we do a thing called imprinting. So we're pushing our ribs gently towards our hips so that we're not flaring out our stomach, we're not arching our back. So there's a lot of terminology. And how do you engage your transverse abdominals? So there's that getting used to the sort of the terminology and what does that mean and how does it, because only you can pull in your transverse abdominals. I can watch people, so I would always ask people to wear something tight, just so that when we are lateral thoracic breathing, I can see whether they're breathing through their stomach or not. And I'll gently remind people, I'll say, I can see some people's stomachs moving, and then you go, oh yeah, bring in the transverse abdominals. So it's more, there's lots to it. Rather than, so you've got to get your head around the new terminology, what it feels like to be able to tilt your pelvis to find that neutral spine, which is why the classes need to be really small. So I would never teach more than 12, apart from I do have one gym session, or had a gym session, which I'll hopefully have again towards the end of May, June, where I'll teach up to 25 people. But because they're quite regular, you get to know their bodies and where they need correcting, and where they're actually doing something safe, so you just leave them to do their own sort of variation of the exercise. But once you've got kind of like 4 weeks and you go, oh, I get that feeling now, that's what it feels like to bring in my transverse abdominals. I do know where my pelvic floor is, and I can breathe without breathing into my stomach. You then start to get to more of the precision and control of the movements. So it's about which muscles are we wanting to engage. So for example, in Pilates, there's an exercise called the shoulder bridge, very, very different to a yoga shoulder bridge. We call it more like a Pilates ski slope. So we're wanting to engage the pelvis. So we tilt the pelvis to engage the glutes and the hamstrings. So we want to turn off the quads. So that big muscle group already, we want to turn that off, and we want to strengthen the quads and the hamstrings, and then mobilize the spine slowly through the lumbar spine into the thoracic spine off the mat, to then come into that nice shoulder bridge, and then very, very slowly mobilizing the spine back down, finishing with the base of the spine, so the pelvis. So it's more talking to the clients about what muscles I want them to engage, because Pilates is about, as I said from the top, it's about supporting the joints and turning on the smaller muscles, so that they're helping to provide you with a lot more strength, a lot more balance, and that nice neutral spine that we're looking for.
Wonderful. So you're throwing lots of fancy words around here. Let's unpick a bit, because obviously bearing in mind we're on the radio, and
Yes.
we can't see where all these fancy muscles and things are. So you've mentioned transverse abdominals. Where are they?
So they're the inner abdominal muscles. So you've got your rectus abdominals. So when people call them the abs and the six pack, the rectus abdominals only form two parts of that. And then the transverse abdominals is the start of the inner. So it's the inner muscles. So we talk about the obliques. So the obliques are the side muscles. You've got your transverse abdominals that are really, really inside, so they're underneath the rectus abdominals, so they're supporting your spine. So that's where we start to strengthen that inner core. And the way we engage the transverse abdominals is by imagining. So in Pilates there's a lot of imagery that we talk about. So I would ask clients to imagine they've got big, thick, tight belt around the waist, pulling it into hole number 10. So you're breathing into hole number 10, releasing down to 5, and then releasing and holding at hole number 3. So you've got that 30% contraction. So you continually in Pilates have that muscle contraction, and that's where you're getting your core strength from. So that's one of the techniques that we use to help people engage those inner core muscles that you'll never be able to see, but you'll be able to feel when you're strengthening them.
And that's how you get the toning effect, is it? So you're toning from the inside out?
Absolutely. And it's quite funny, when I was saying that kind of 4-week initial period, I had a client join us, and she said, "Oh, I don't know whether it was something spicy I ate or whether it was I'm now engaging my transverse abdominals." She said, "But I could feel something." No, I think was it spicy food or something that I did here. And one of my other clients that had been coming for a while, she went, "That will be your transverse abdominals. You found them and you're engaging them." Which is just so lovely when you've taught, which is why I love teaching and will never teach more than 12 people, because that for me feels like I'm gifting somebody with that, my passion, and I'm teaching them. So I don't just want to turn up at a class, or at the moment when I'm doing more online, I don't just want people to participate. I want them to understand and know what's happening and feel it as well. Because I feel so much more toned when I do Pilates, and people are coming in going, "My arms feel like they're toning," and they're looking like oddly at me because there's not a weight in sight, because we're lengthening those short tight muscles and we're naturally toning. So I love it when people say that, because that's exactly how I felt. And people talk about sitting at their desks and thinking about, what would Sarah Jane be saying now? Our shoulders back and down, sitting on our sit bones, not on our lower lumbar spine. And I just love that. I just think that makes me so happy to be doing what I'm doing and passing on my passion.
Excellent, excellent. So where should we go from here? The other thing I've written down here is lateral thoracic breathing. What's
Yes.
that all about? Can you explain that? Why we need to do it, and how do we do it?
So once you've engaged your transverse abdominals, you shouldn't be able to breathe into your stomach because you've got that 30% contraction. So so thoracic is the upper part of your spine. So we go from the lumbar spine up to the thoracic. So it's the thoracic region of your rib cage. So we just practice breathing in that part of our rib cage. There's plenty of space for breath in that part of our rib cage, so that we don't breathe into our stomach, because we want the transverse abdominals to be engaged. So I would normally ask people to put the heel of their hands, so their palm, on the side of their rib cage, just with their fingertips lightly touching, almost as if it's a pair of curtains. And when you breathe in and then out, the pair of curtains just slightly opens. And again, I ask people to wear tight clothing, which is uncomfortable for some people, because I do find people come to Pilates as a form of exercise because they don't exercise, so they think it's going to be quite gentle. So I'm asking people sometimes to wear something that they don't really want to wear, so a tight top, but exactly so I can see whether they're breathing into that stomach, and just help them to understand that lateral thoracic breathing.
Wow, it's quite involved, isn't it?
Yeah, it is involved. I mean, it took me 8 months to, I started training January 19, and then I fully qualified on the 31st of August. And that was literally almost fast tracking. I said, what's the shortest period of time? Because what I didn't want to do was it linger on for years. I'd made this decision that this is the direction that I wanted to take my career in, and didn't want to hang around. So yeah, but I love it. I love knowing the science of the body. I love being able to help clients that have come in with lots of different issues. I think we spoke before about, I always thought I was going to be teaching people Pilates like me, almost fit, healthy people, had a great relationship with exercise, and apart from a torn ligament injury, which I was well over, there was nothing wrong with me. And it's quite the opposite. 80% of my clients probably need me to help them out with something. So whether that's back injuries, neck injuries, I get a twinge here, I've got a twinge there, and it's the 20%, probably less, that when they fill out that physical activity readiness questionnaire, there's not a single box that's got an issue with it, if that makes sense. But I like that as well, and I really like the challenge, and I like being able to help my clients feel better about themselves because they're being able to exercise, and they've got more of that kind of, I suppose, one-on-one approach with me because the classes are so small.
Yes, yeah. You've mentioned the word thoracic several times. So for listeners' benefit, describe where the thoracic area is in relation to the spine. So if you kind of put the spine into sections, where
Yeah,
would where is the thoracic area?
so you go from into your head and into your neck, that's your cervical spine. And then it goes into the thoracic spine. So the thoracic spine comes from kind of the top of your neck all the way down to where you meet your lumbar spine, and the lumbar spine are 5 spine. So one easy way to remember is that the clavicle spine is 7, so we have breakfast at 7. The thoracic spine, we have lunch at 12. The lumbar spine is 5, we have tea at 5. And then you've got fused lumbar at the bottom, so you've got 5 and 4, which make up supper at 9. So that's your spine.
Right. Very good. Very good. So let's have one of your songs. Rosella, Everybody's Free.
Free,
So
yeah.
let's hear why you chose that one, please, Sarah Jane.
I think it first came out, so I was very much a energetic dance music partier when I was younger, and just the tune, it's just everybody's free to do what they want, and it always makes me want to stand up and dance and sing to it, and it just makes me smile. I've got a massive smile on my face thinking about it. It's just a really happy tune for me.
Fantastic. Let's have a break for Rosella, Everybody's Free. So you're listening to Perfect Health on Elastic FM with Elaine Godley, and my guest today is Sarah Jane Johnson from Evolution 34. Thank you for that song, Rosella, Everybody is Free. So you mentioned, Sarah Jane, that your company is called Evolution, and a little while ago you popped into the conversation the age of 34. So is that how you kind of came up with the name Evolution 34?
Oh, no, I think that coincides for when I sort of found Pilates. So, no, the 34 comes from Joseph Pilates' 34 moves.
Ah.
Yeah.
Right,
But I probably did
moves.
mention before because it was around 34 when I started to find out that I got the high blood pressure. And so, yeah, very coincidental. I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, you are right. But no, the Evolution 34 is the 34 Pilates moves.
Right.
That's where that comes from.
So 34 moves, and you've previously spoken about 6 principles of Pilates. So 6 principles that cover 34 moves. Have I got that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, we better go through
So
them then, hadn't we? What are the 6 principles?
So one of the principles is breath. So we do timing of exercises with breath. So it might be you inhale as you go around. So the spine twist is a nice exercise for, yeah, again, the thoracic spine. So we would time it. So we inhale as we go prepare, and then we exhale as we go around into the exercise. So breath is controlled, or exercises is controlled by the breath. Flow, so the exercises should flow, so they're not stilted. So when we're doing an exercise, we keep it flowing so we don't stop. So mentioned the shoulder bridge earlier. As soon as we've replaced that pelvis back to the mat, we engage the glutes and hamstring again and keep it going. So we're not stopping and starting. So that transverse abdominals are continually engaged, and we're continually working with our bodies, basically. We don't stop. Precision, so the precision of the movement, so engaging the glutes and the hamstrings, getting the right muscles and joints working rather than just flinging ourselves into a shoulder bridge. And I have to do quite a lot of slowing people down and getting them to engage the correct muscles. And there's a lot of watch out points in Pilates. So if somebody's knees start to come out, that will be an indication that they're starting to use their quads. So I would use a modification, maybe one of the small Pilates, we call them blocks, but they're nothing like a yoga block, but maybe putting a couple in between somebody's legs so that they're just gently holding that. Control, so control of the movement, so slowly. So for the shoulder bridge, I would say slow and controlled. So you want to be taking at least 6 to 8 counts to take the vertebra off the mat. If they're just doing it in 3 counts or 2, they're not mobilizing each of the vertebra. So which ones have I forgotten? We've got breath flow, precision control. Oh, centering. How could I forget centering? So that's all about centering your core so those transverse abdominals are engaged. And I talk about them as well. So I talk about the nice flowing exercises. So during the class, I'll always be bringing people back to those principles. So slow and controlled, flowing movements, and then saying to people, well done, those movements are really nice, flowing, I can see that precision and control, so that they know that they're doing the exercises in the right way.
So what's the 6th one? We've got breath, flow, precision, control, centering. There's one more.
I can't remember. How can I not forget? How can I forget?
I would not to worry, perhaps it might pop into your head.
Back to you on that one.
Okay, so Joseph Pilates, so I guess he's
Yes.
the founder of Pilates, and when did he design his program, structure, whatever you want to call it, his system?
Yeah, so it was during the Second World War, and he himself was not a particularly well person. So he had rickets as a child, and he made himself exercise outside to get the vitamin D that he needed. He was in an intern camp, so he was German, and was in an intern camp and designed the exercises just to keep the gentleman that he was with going, basically, because exercise is so important. So he designed the exercises, and over the years they've been developed and changed slightly with sports science. He originally called his exercise plans of 34 moves contrology, and that's where that one of the principles of control comes from. And it was one of his, I suppose, somebody that he trained in the US, a gentleman called Alan Herdman, who's a British gentleman. He came back over to the UK, and when Joseph Pilates passed away, he renamed Contrology Pilates in honour of him. So that's where the word Pilates comes from. It was his surname.
Excellent, and much easier to say for all of us.
Yeah, I did, when I was thinking about my business name, I liked the word Contrology, but once you start setting up a business and you start looking into names, it's already been taken, and I just thought, no, bring it back to myself and what was important to me, and that's where the evolution came from. So as far as I know, there's no more Pilates instructors or businesses called Evolution 34.
Right, well done you. Do you play music? If you go to yoga classes or other fitness classes, you often have music which kind of tends to set the tone and the pace. Do you play music?
I do now. I never learnt Pilates to music. I never thought I could do a Pilates class to music, but it's not about me, it's about my clients. So I started off not playing music. Now in the gym that I work in on a Friday evening, they're so used to music being for every single class. So they said, we like you, we're listening to you, because there's so much to remind people and talk to people about. I would have always thought that music would be distracting because it takes your head off to a different space. But I did find some music that I could play for them. It's not spa twinkly sort of music as I would call it, but they really like it. And then I play lo-fi hip hop for my own personal classes. I find it really nice and relaxing, and it just really depends. You know what I found? It depends on the time of the day, because my lunchtime classes, we don't play music. Because 2 of the venues that I use don't have the facilities, and I'm already carting quite a lot of equipment around. I don't want to start carting some speakers as well. But I find it's different in the daytime than it is in the evening. I've got a class now on a Tuesday evening in a small dance studio, and we actually turn the lights off and we just have a blue light and it's very, very soft. Now, I wouldn't be able to do that with new participants, but these are people that have been with me now since last August, and know the exercises, and I can still go around and correct them if I need to. It's not that dark. And we play, again, the lo-fi hip-hop music, and it just gives it a different kind of feel. So the music that I play on a Friday night is very, very different to what I play on a Tuesday night, is very, very different to what I do in my other classes. So again, it's kind of being able to take pride in knowing your clients, knowing how they feel when they're coming to your exercise classes, and tailoring it, even tailoring the music to their needs.
Fabulous, and it's not something that I would have thought of when I asked that question. I wasn't expecting that response. That's very interesting how you've tailored it, and as you say, time of day. And when you think about it, we don't want sort of loud blaring music before we go to bed. We don't want soft stuff at certain times of the day. We need the right sort of beat and ambience, don't we?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you've not always been a Pilates instructor. You've mentioned all the various different keep fit things that you've done over the years, but presumably that's in kind of more your hobby time. What career did you have before you changed full time to, well, mostly full time to Pilates?
Yeah. I've had an amazing 23-year career in the events industry. So I started, I wrote a business plan when I was 19 to own my own events agency. And I was told by the business tech to get some worldly experience. I also wrote a business plan to have an import-export sports business. I actually spoke to Nike in America at the age of 20. And
Wow.
again, they told me, great idea of what I wanted to do, but come back when you've got a little bit more worldly experience. So I wasn't put off. I decided, so I was working in a further education college. I actually now work as a lecturer in that further education college for 11 hours. I teach 11 hours a week. It's so bizarre how things come round. So I was working there and wrote my business plan, got told to get some worldly experience, and thought, right, now what do I do? So I thought, well, I still want to be in the events industry, so I need to find a full-time job. So I wrote to 8 charities with a good old-fashioned pen and piece of paper, and said that I would volunteer for 8 hours a week if in 6 months I could have organised an event and have it on my CV. And I spent a fantastic 6 months with the British Red Cross, organising an event to celebrate the launch of a rescue vehicle. I was given no budget. I bought myself a mobile phone. I think mobile phones were just coming out, and I'd sit in the staff room on my break in my full-time job at the FE College, contacting people so that I could organise this event. So got my first job in the industry at the East Midlands Conference Centre in Nottingham, and yeah, never looked back. I moved to Scotland, had an amazing 9.5 years running around Edinburgh for the University of Edinburgh, organising all sorts of different events. So yeah, touching on the Fringe Festival, had lots of, just an amazing career. Came back down to England, so to speak, across the border, and then decided that, well, I wanted to own my own events agency. Why don't I go and work for an events agency? So I'd always been on more the venue side, and so spent the latter 5 years of my career literally flying around the world. I was an account director for a global events agency, so looking after my team, watching my team run amazing events. I've been all over the world and it's been fantastic, but just needed to make the change. I felt like I was getting, was it going to be an after 50 job? I'm not 50 yet. It was an early sort of semi-retirement from the events industry. And it just, things happened. There was a redundancy, there was ill health with the family member. And I just really needed to decide, what am I doing? Because this job, careering around the world, is no longer sustainable for myself, for what I want for my family member, and also threat of redundancy again. So I decided to, I was sat in my living room on a Friday afternoon, feeling like I'd been too busy for the last couple of years to learn anything new. So I decided that I wanted to become a Pilates instructor. Now, whether that was because I was going to be the best person at Pilates because I knew how to teach it, or whether that was what I was going to do for my living, I got caught up at the beginning of my training. A lot of people had asked me over the years to be a business consultant and come and help their events business. I was quite well known in my industry and used to do a lot of industry talking at conferences and events. And I used to lecture in event management in Edinburgh as well. I was headhunted by Edinburgh College to lecture as a event management lecturer. So I started to get into a little bit of a rut with I enjoyed the business consulting contracts that I had, but thought this isn't getting me away from that fast pace. So 2 months into my Pilates training, that's when I made the bold statement to my family and my husband, I was going to become a Pilates instructor.
I think that's about the time I met you, isn't it? That you just
It is, yeah. It's
shortly after
yeah.
that.
I would, yeah. It is because I had just got my business card, so I decided that I was sitting my first anatomy and physiology exam on the 4th of May, and if I passed that, I knew I could do it. I knew that I found the anatomy and physiology learning hard because I was teaching myself science. It was a lot of online learning, and I'm a very visual, practical person. And when I passed that first exam, that was it. I'd already got my graphic designer. He's a local person from Bolsover. I'd already got him. I'd already met him. I already talked to him about my concept ideas. And as soon as I passed that exam, everything was go, go, go. So yeah, it was. I think I just got my business card when I met you because I presented at that event in Long Eaton. So yeah. So although didn't start trading until the 1st of September, I would say that I've had my own business since the 4th of May, because that in my mind is when I was Evolution 34, and that's what I was going to do.
Good for you.
So,
you're a bit of a little dynamite, aren't you? With business planning.
Coming up to my first birthday soon.
Yes, yeah, celebration time. Although sadly your business is, well, not sadly actually, maybe it's for the better. There's always a silver lining with every situation. This coronavirus thing that's been going on. So how is the coronavirus affecting? You've mentioned that you're going online now with classes, but how does that work? Because you've several times referred to being able to see physically how somebody is standing, how they're holding themselves, etc., making sure they're doing the right thing. So how does that work online?
So what I've done is I've kept it to the people that were already my clients. So there's not anybody that's been with me less than 6 weeks. Now 6 weeks is still in the infancy days. So what I'm doing online is really paring it back to the fundamental exercises that they originally learn with me. So there's 8 kind of my go-to beginner exercises. So all of my classes, I've gone back to those because they're the exercises that people know and I know they can do them safely. My people that have only been coming 6 weeks, I'm just doing it as a pair session. So that's quite strange actually. There are actually 3 couples who are naturally started Pilates with me. One of them's the presenter on Elastic FM on the Sunday, Martin.
Ah, right. I interviewed him recently. I interviewed him recently. Fabulous.
He said he was going on the way. So I've got Martin and Angela, for example, at 7:15 this evening. We've already had a Zoom meeting practice. And yeah, so I think they're ready to go. So I've basically cleared a big space in my living room. I've collapsed a dining room table, very expensive glass table. So I'm hoping it'll be okay. So I've cleared a space. I have invested in some new piece of equipment. So yes, coronavirus, COVID-19 has cost me money, and I'm technically losing money because I won't be charging as much as I would normally charge on a hands-to-hand class. Now, because of I suppose not whether it's the slowness of how the UK has reacted, I have been able to prepare. So what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is making sure that the clients that are sometimes a little bit more nervous than the others, have had that encouragement from it. You can do this exercise. I watch you doing it safely. I very, very rarely have to correct you now. So have faith. I've gone through logging onto Zoom with them on a one-to-one basis. I had a call with somebody who's really not great on technology, wanted to continue with Pilates, but thought because of the technology side of it, she couldn't. So it's just that caring about my clients and treating them as I would in the class on a one-on-one basis. But yeah, I mean, some are nervous. I can see them. So when they're doing the Pilates class, I start the exercise off as I would do in person. And then I step back, I sit on my mat and I watch my clients while they're doing their exercises. I've corrected some very, very small things, but it's because I know that they need correcting all the time. So I'm just reminding them individually that whatever they need to do. So far it's been quite successful. I'm talking to some, and they are all mums, but there might be some dads out there as well, because the times of the classes they can't attend anymore because they're homeschooling. So I've adapted my timetable a little bit, because at the end of the day I'm now teaching from my living room, so from my home studio. So I'm not reliant on having to find a venue. So I've been able to say to people, look, why don't we do an early bird 6:30 session? So before, you know, the kids get up and you've got to do the homeschooling, let's have a Pilates session. And we've run a couple of those, and that's proved really, really popular. So so far it's going okay. So it's just seeing what happens on the other side, and whether I'll keep a balance. I'll definitely obviously go back to my face-to-face, but whether I keep a balance of having online sessions as well, we'll see what happens and what my clients want and what's best for my business as well.
You mentioned children, homeschooling children. Can children do Pilates? Is it advisable, or do you have to be grown up to understand what you're talking about? Because a lot of it is quite technical, isn't it, and scientific, as you've mentioned.
Yeah, so I actually last half term encouraged some of my clients, because I want to raise awareness for a children's cancer charity this year, and one of my ideas was standing tall. So rather than talking about posture, talking about standing tall. I think because I'm a teacher, I'm a lecturer for 16 to 18-year-olds, I quite can naturally adapt my language when I'm teaching. So a couple of the younger teenagers that came during the half term, my tone's slightly different, and I wouldn't say transverse abdominal squat. I would say is right, we want to get right in there, right underneath that six pack that you're wanting when you're older. We want to get right underneath there, and we want to tighten those inner muscles. So what I want you to do for me is imagine that you've got a tight fit belt. So it's just the way you teach it. Now, so children, it's just adapting it. Insurance wise, I'm insured to teach from 14 upwards. So I've not taught anybody lower than 14. I was just about to have a conversation with a great mentor from the training company that I trained with, who has experience of teaching younger teenagers, but that conversation's just on hold at the minute because we're all hiding from each other. So but those ideas won't go away, and we've got plenty more months of this year for me to still raise awareness, to still start hopefully teaching younger teenagers, because they carry such big bags around. They do lots of different sports and activities and dancing that they need supported joints, and Pilates is so complementary. So hopefully, but yeah, I've got some 14-year-old pluses. Got a lovely lady who's got a son. She was already talking about her son was wanting to lose a little tiny bit of weight around his waist. So she was teaching him one of the exercises called the 100, which is all about the core. So I've been able to watch him now on his mat next to his mum doing it, which is really nice actually. So although this whole situation with COVID-19 is just not great at all, I've had some really, really nice moments with clients, whether it's been practicing how to get onto Zoom or watching them in the living rooms, some with the dressing gowns on
Yeah.
after a class.
Yeah.
So actually it's been really nice. Although I thought it was going to be quite sad and lonely on my own, it's not, because you're interacting with the same community, and actually people are not stressed having rushed from work, because most of them are working from home, so it's just created a different kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think overall it's going to be good. I think we're all going to come out of this a lot better, in
Yeah.
so many different ways, understanding of one another, collaborations and so on and so forth, and sharing and all this, and generally being nice to one another, apart from the idiots that are doing all the stockpiling and so on and so
Oh,
forth.
no. I think that's calmed. Well, I think that's calmed down now. I know this. But yeah, I was able to go and buy a loaf of bread for my husband yesterday. Although I don't eat it because of my wheat allergy, he loves it. So I did manage to find some yesterday. So I thought, actually, maybe it is all slowing down.
Yeah, that's excellent. With your teaching that you do, the lecturing 16 to 18-year-olds, what topic do you teach them?
I teach them business. I've been teaching them about developing teams in business. I'm going on to now teach them we'll be doing online learning, and I'm going to be teaching them about international business. That was hard enough last year with Brexit, never mind with what's going on now, but it's just generally how companies trade, what is an FX rate, what's a developing country, what's an emerging market. So I'm really looking forward to getting that kick started with them. But again, online, so that's going to be really, really strange. I won't care who's on their mobile phone, because I can't control it. And because of we've got fantastic things like Zoom, haven't we? But we can't use that with 16 to 18-year-olds because of safeguarding.
Oh,
So
really?
college currently, currently really, really looking into how we can effectively make learning interactive. So I can't say much more about that at the minute, but yeah, I'm thinking, I've got Zoom, you can use my Zoom account, caring and sharing, and it's
Yes.
like, no, you
Mm.
can't. So yeah, so it's like, take a step back, this isn't my business, let the college do what they need to do, and I'll be guided by them. So it's going to be very interesting and what happens. But I've got tactics too, they're working in teams, so I've got a rota together, so making sure that the whole team are chatting to me, and it's type chatting through the system that we use, so it's all safe. And I think the college as well have just published some etiquette around how we should use language, because again, the students' behaviour will change because they're not in their classroom environment. So there's a lot of thought that's had to go into this, and how we can continue teaching them, but in a safe way, in a correct way. So, like, massive creds to the college for what they're doing at the moment, and keeping those students in their education.
And to you for being so versatile, and
Yeah.
changing your business in a heartbeat and keeping your clients going. So that's brilliant. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, Sarah Jane.
Pleasure.
Just before we close, what are your top tips for anybody who's never done Pilates before? What should they be aware of? How should they kind of dip their toe in the water?
Um, I think just give their first beginners class a go, and give it a fair time as well to understand it, because I say for the first 4 weeks it's not something that you say, for example, a Zumba class, you're going to love dancing and jumping around, or you're not. With Pilates, it just needs a little bit of time. Take the time to understand the terminology, and I'll break that down for you if you don't. And give it a go and get into the exercises, and at least give it 12 weeks so that you master a couple of the exercises and you can feel the benefits. It's a bit like it's not a slow burner, but there's a lot to think about, so bear with it. If you want to improve your posture, if you want to help your joints and your muscles, then it's a great exercise to get into. So give it time.
Thank you. So people get hold of you through your website, evolution34.com.
Yeah, evolution34.com, and then on Instagram and Facebook, I'm evolution34 Pilates. Or give me a call.
Okay, what's your number?
It's 07852 333 394.
And it once more.
07852 333 394.
Fantastic. And we're going to play out now on your second choice, Coldplay, Sky Full of Stars. Why did you choose this one?
Oh, amazing memories of a very, very hectic but enjoyable event that myself and a couple of my team were running in Montreal. They were amazing. We had such highs and such lows, but this song brings back all those amazing high memories for me.
Well, here you are. Thank you very much, Sarah Johnston. Sarah
Thank you,
Jane
Elaine.
Johnston from Evolution 34. Thank you again. Take
Thanks,
care,
Elaine.
and
Take care.
lovely to
Bye.
be with you. And on next week, listeners will be back on 4 till 5 on Tuesday and repeated on Saturday 11 till 12. And if you didn't catch all of this show, listen on Saturday, and Sarah Jane Johnson will be taking you through the benefits of Pilates again. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week, whatever you're doing. Take care, be healthy, keep safe. Bye for now.